Okay, imagine this scenario. It's election season, doesn't matter what year. The primary elections are over, and time for the general elections come along. Now, you look at the ballot and you see several different positions that you can vote on. Looking at the presidential candidates, you realize that you're against the Democratic candidate. You don't want this guy to win. You're absolutely against the Republican candidate. There's a Green Party candidate that you actually like. Libertarian candidate that you tolerate, and this independent guy that you'd absolutely love to have as the president. Now, not considering the other positions in this particular case, just how would you vote on the president? I mean, if this is the way that you felt, hypothetically, what would be the best vote that you could cast? Some people might say, well, the best vote that you could cast in that case would be a vote for the Democratic candidate, keep out the Republican. Other people would say, well, you know, regardless of how you feel about the Democratic candidate, he's got to be liberal, so I have to vote for the conservative candidate to keep him out. These are ways of thinking that are based on an electoral system that's deeply flawed. A lot of people just end up saying, well, the best thing you can do is not vote. People see that as apathy, and it's not. Doesn't mean that a person doesn't care. It means that they can't find a good way to represent themselves. So, here's the answer. The best way that you could vote in that case would be to say, I'm directly opposed to the Democratic candidate. I'm absolutely against the Republican candidate. I'm for the Green Party candidate. I'd tolerate the Libertarian Party candidate, and I'd absolutely love this independent candidate. That would be honesty. So why can't we actually do that on the ballot? Why is it that we have a voting system where it's impossible to say what you really think? Now, I've been passing this around, talking to people about it. I've been tweeting things out on Twitter, trying to get people to understand it. I recently got a slew of replies from someone on Twitter comparing this to a scoring or a simple range voting system, and basically saying that what I was saying was flawed because I'm including negative numbers. And there have been books out on the subject that said that in their studies, using negative numbers was not a good idea. But what some people fail to realize is that when these studies are only based on a range of from not having an opinion at all or not really wanting a candidate specifically to very much wanting a candidate, that is a positive range. And it doesn't make any sense to have negative numbers if you're only talking about allowing a person to vote on a positive range. If you're only going to allow expression of positive feelings, then why have negative numbers? That's kind of like temperature scales. The Fahrenheit scale and the Celsius scale artificially have negative numbers in them. There are no real negative temperatures. -6 or -6 on the Fahrenheit scale is not the opposite of +6 on the Fahrenheit scale. If it was, then +6 on the Fahrenheit scale converted into Celsius would be the opposite of that number negative on the Celsius scale. It's not. The Rankine scale and the Kelvin scale are both based on absolute zero being zero. When all of the heat has been removed, that's when you have no temperature left. When you're only talking about something that can be positive, for example, the number of oranges in a box, negative numbers don't make any sense. When you're talking about approval of something, the lowest approval that you can have is not zero. Zero is no approval. The lowest approval that you can have is disapproval, which is the opposite of approval, and that would be a negative number. So, if you want to have a voting system that's fair, you need a voting system that allows you to say how you feel about each candidate on the ballot that you actually have an opinion for, whether you're for that candidate or against that candidate, and to allow an expression of different degrees of being for or against. Now, the sensible thing to do, since most people would want to have their vote counted as much as possible, is at least represent someone on the ballot as absolutely for, so that you have a full vote, unless you feel so weakly about every candidate that you don't feel right doing that. But the remaining candidates, you could express however you want. And there may be 2 or more people that you are absolutely for. There may be 2 or more people that you're absolutely against. There's no legitimate reason why you shouldn't be able to say exactly that on the ballot and have it properly counted. Runoff voting, by the way, is not the same thing. While runoff voting allows you to express an opinion on the ballot about more than one candidate, it also only counts your opinion expressed about one candidate. If the first candidate that you've chosen, if your first choice on the ballot for runoff voting is the least voted for, then it'll count your second choice. If your first and second choice are the 2 least voted for candidates, then it'll count your third choice. But regardless, it's still only counting one. It counts one, or it counts another, or it counts a different one, but only one gets counted. In a weighted net approval voting system, all of your vote is counted. Your feelings about each candidate that you have an opinion about can be expressed on the ballot all at the same time. All of them get counted. All of them can make a difference in the end result of the votes, in who comes out in first place, who comes out in second place, who comes out in third place. This works for a single runner voting system, or single winner voting system. It also works for a voting system where you pick multiple candidates with the same election. So it actually would work in systems in various countries. The United States right now has the most antiquated voting system there is. We have a completely out-of-date, archaic, broken voting system where you're forced to choose between, do you vote for someone that you feel can't win, or not vote at all, or vote for somebody that you don't want. And very rarely somebody actually gets to vote for somebody that they really want to have in the United States. That shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't be forced into that sort of a situation where we have to choose between not being represented or being represented wrong. Thanks for listening.